Okay, so today we talk about French Vietnamese. The first one, Vietnamese versus France. Question number one. Summarize the domestic and international historical background leading to the French invasion and colonization of Vietnam. Domestic. Vietnam has an important geographical position rich in natural resources. Vietnam feudalism is in state of decline. Economic, agriculture decline, failure, constant hunger. Industry and trade. Industry and trade stagnate. The military is weak and backward. Society people lives are difficult peasants. Uprising broke out continuously. Wrong foreign policy banning religion and expelling clerics has caused discord among the people. The international background. Due to the need for market and color from middle of 19th century, Western countries promote colonization. STEAM UK, European countries develop industry, mass productivity, become more powerful, need more invade other. Domo economic and social policy also determined for entire period of French rule. The development of French Indochina as a colony became known in the 19th century. Question number two. What did French colonists do Vietnam and Vietnamese people? How did the actions affect Vietnamese society and Vietnamese people? Were there any accidentally good things that French colonists did in Vietnam? Under the pretext of protecting Catholicism, on the afternoon of August 31st, 1858, the French themselves in front of Da Nang. On September 1st, 1858, the French army opened fire to invade our country. What did French colonists do to Vietnam? Culture and education. Propagating Western culture and lifestyle, maintain the village culture in the different direction of impoverishment and obscurantism, maintain bad habits like drinking, smoking, drug addiction, funeral practices, superstition. Economic. Have taxes, especially on wine and salt trade. Create new taxes. Stealing the lands from the family, expanding production of rice and rubber plantation, focusing on coal and middle mining, investing in light industry, facility, building roads, bridges, shops, school, and railroad, providing modern medicine, bringing electricity to Vietnam. Government, taking over all the high positions in the government system. Traders who followed the French controlled small village and towns, collected taxes, supervised constructions, and enforced French laws. Effects. With economy positive, the French exploitation gave rise to colonial industry with colonial elements. Urbanization in the direction of modernity was born initially, giving rise to commodity economy. The self-sufficient nature of the old economy was broken. Negative. One of the goals of exploitation is to plunder human strength, natural resources, are exploited to the extreme. Agriculture is backward and standing still. Industry develops in trickle and balanced manner, lacking in heavy industry. With social, people lives are miserable social contradiction are deep. Beside the old classes that are constantly being divided, Vietnamese society has appeared new classes: feudal landlord, surrendered and worked henchmen for the French colonialists. However, there is a part of small medium landowner who are patriotic. Good thing the railroad, the facility, building, transportation system, bridge, the electric system still be maintained. With language, many Vietnamese at that time could speak French. Western control integration in Vietnam. Question number 3. Briefly present 1954 Geneva Conference, background, signatories, and provisions. What countries decided to divide Vietnam at 17 parallel? Background. International. In late 1953 and early 1954, when the Cold War reaches its peak, the world saw a trend of detente and settlement through negotiation. A typical example was the meeting in Berlin of US, UK, France, and Soviet Union in 1954. The conference discussed Australia but failed to reach the original agreement and turned to consider the Indochina issue. Domestic. Under the leadership of party and President Ho Chi Minh, our army and people won consecutive victories, especially the Dien Bien Phu victory on May 7th, 1954, ending the Winter-Spring War, bankrupting the French naval plane, defeating the plot to gain military advantage to change the situation of the war, promoting the anti-war movement of French people, increasing the support of the French people and the war. Signatories. Representative from United States, the Soviet Union, the people of Republic of China, France, and Great Britain came together at April 1954 to try to resolve several problems related to Asia. Attended by representatives of Cambodia, the People Republic of China, France, Laos, the United Kingdom, the United States, the Soviet Union, the Viet Minh, the north of Vietnam, and the state of Vietnam, the south of Vietnam. Provision. The Accords were issued on 21st July 1954, taking effect 2 days later, set out the following terms in relation to Vietnam. Number 1. A provisional military demarcation line running approximately along the 17th parallel, on either side of which forces of two parties shall be regrouped after their withdrawal. Number 2. A 3-mile wide, 4.8 kilometers delimitated zone on each side of the demarcation line. French Union force regrouped the south of the line and Viet Minh to the north. Free movement of the population between the zone for 300 days. Neither zone to join any military or seek military established of the International Control Commissions comprising Canada, Poland, and India as chair to monitor the ceasefire. Free general election by secret ballot saw the held in July 1956 under the supervision of the International Supervisory Commission. It was recorded only the unsigned final declaration of the conference. What country decided to divide Vietnam as 17 parallel? The agreements concluded in Geneva between April and July 1954, collectively called the Geneva Accords, was signed by French and Viet Minh representatives and provided for ceasefire and temporary division of our country into military zones at 17 parallel. Question number 4. What countries supported Vietnam during struggle against France? During Vietnam's struggle against France colonial rule, especially during First Indochina War from 1946 to 1954, the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, led by Ho Chi Minh and Viet Minh, received support mainly from the following countries. Number 1. Soviet Union provided political support, training, and later military aid, recognized the Democratic Republic of Vietnam as the legitimate government. Number 2. China, People's Republic of China. After communist victory in China in 1946, they became a major supporter of the Viet Minh, sent weapons, military advisor, and supplies, trained many Vietnamese military officers. These true communists were most significant foreign supporters of North Vietnam during the war against France. Meanwhile, France was supported by the United States. Number 5. After all, do you hate French people because what they did during colonization in Vietnam? I don't hate. The second part, Hỏa Lò Prison. Number 1. Make generation introduction of Hỏa Lò Prison, the construction, the historical background that led the construction of prison. The construction and historical background. When Vietnam was still a part of French Indochina, the French began constructing Hỏa Lò Prison in 1896 and finished in 1901. The prison was initially named Maison Central, which was a common euphemism for French prison. The prison was used to look up political prisoners fighting for independence in the war. By 1954, it housed almost 2,000 inmates who were sold to wars by dozens and live in the bad condition. Several Vietnamese revolutionaries were put under the bardos, which the French had used through the region. Architecture. Originally, Hạ Lò covered an area of 12 square meters. Though much of it was demolished at 1999, the remaining portion of now preserved as a museum. The prison was designed with high stone walls topped with electric bed wire, watchtower for surveillance, and separate blocks for different category and prisoners. Key areas include cells for common criminals and political prisoners, often overcrowded. Solitary confinement cells used for punishing or isolating key revolutionaries. Torture chambers with leg stocks and shackles. A guillotine room where executions were carried out. The function of jail in different periods to this day. In the French colonial, during this time, Halal was for housing Vietnamese partiers and revolutionaries, including members of Communist Party such as Phan Bội Châu, Nguyễn Văn Cừ, and others. Prisoner was prisoner was subject in brutal living conditions, forced labor, and torture. But prisoner also become a place where revolutionaries exchanged ideas and continued their political education. During Vietnam War, after the French left, the prison became under the control of North Vietnam government. During the Vietnam War, it was used to detain American prisoners of war (POWs). The most famous being Senator is John McCain. The American nickname is Hanoi Hilton. Conditions during this period were mixed. While early years saw severe treatment, later years saw some improvement and effort aimed at demonstrating human treatment. Post-war and present day. After reunification of Vietnam in 1975, Hoa Lo is operating as the prison. In 1990, most of the original structure was demolished to make way for urban development, except for the main gate and the section of the prison, which was preserved as historical museum. Today is several tourists. It serves as tourist destination and educational site, offering visitors a powerful look at Vietnam's struggles for independence and hearts relatively of its story. Number two, how was Vietnamese political prisoners treated in Hoa Lo prison? The detention rooms were different sizes, but built with the same design. Houses having four tile roofs and solid brick walls, painted gray with few very small windows near the roof, making the room very dark and stuffy. Making the Each room had open air WC, sometimes no being cleaned surfaces and rice spill all over the floor, giving out very filthy, slimy, and sticky smell. In Hoa Lo prison complex, there was a special cages and death cell. The prisoners must do hard labor such as repairing houses or road, building dike, cleaning toilets. They had to hard work because the result affected to their rations. If they couldn't finish the work, they got no food. The French colonists used many different types of punishment and suppression against Vietnamese patriotic and revolutionary fighters being kept in cages, leg sucking all night, hot labor, to name a few. The jailer inconvenience what constrainer cut down the food ration a prisoner and used the bad quality of food, mouth price, spoiled, not nutritious. Every year there was provided two uniforms and one blanket for the winner. Due to the poor quality food and poor sanitary conditions, many prisoners contracted diseases such as beriberi. Uh, Many of them died before their prison term expired. Question number 3. What was different between how the French treated Vietnamese political prisoners and Vietnam treated American prisoner of war? The French treated Vietnam political prisoner was very brutally. They were tortured, chained, forced to hard labor, and kept in terrible conditions. The goal was to stop resistance and destroy the spirit of, revolutions. During Vietnam War, Hỏa prison was used to detain many American pilots who were captured after the planes were shot down. Americans ironically nicknamed the prison the Hanoi Hilton. In early years, American POWs were held under harsh conditions. They were beaten, kept in solitary confinement, tied in painful position, and received little to no medical. The main purpose of their imprisonment was to force them to confess, provide military information, or participate in propaganda effort. Later, due to international attention and pressure, conditions improved somewhat. Prisoners were given better food, allowed to write at home, and permitted limited group activities. However, many POWs were released in 1974. Recall that their time in captivity was extremely difficult, and both physically and mentally. The difference is in okay. Part 3. Vietnam in USA. Number 1. When, why, how long did US get involved in Vietnam? Why was the US defeated in Vietnam? Why did US get involved in Vietnam War? They wanting to turn South Vietnam into a springboard to attack the North. Printing China and the Soviet Union, the two big brothers of socialist region, suppressing the national liberation movement of the colonized and semi-colonized were taking place. They simply thought that Vietnam was a small, poor country, easy to invade. In addition, South Vietnam also had extremely favorable geographical location. From here, it could reach out other countries very conveniently. Wanting to stop the national liberation movement that was developing strongly, like a storm in the world. Vietnam was one of three hottest spots at that time. Suppressing Vietnam immediately would suppress other movements in the world. When and how long? Between 1945 and 1954, the Vietnamese War an anti-colonial war against France, which received 2.6 billion of financial support from United States. The French defeat of Dien Bien Phu was followed by a peace conference in Geneva. As a result of conference, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam received their independence, and Vietnam was temporarily divided between an anti-communist South and communist North. In 1956, South Vietnam, with American backing, refused to hold unification elections. By 1958, communist leaders, known as the Viet Cong, had begun to battle the South Vietnamese government. To support the South government, the United States sent 2,000 military advisors, a number that grew to 1,600 in 1963. The military condition deteriorated. By 1964, South Vietnam has lost fertile Mekong Delta to the Viet Cong. In 1965, President Lyndon Johnson escalated the war, commencing airstrike on North Vietnam and committing ground force, which numbered 556,000 in 1968. The 1968 death offense by the North Vietnam turned many Americans against the war. The next president, Richard Nixon, advocated Vietnamization, withdrawing American troops and giving South Vietnam greater responsibility for fighting the war. In 1970, Nixon attempted to slow the flow of North Vietnamese soldiers and supplies into South Vietnam by sending American forces to destroy communist supply bases in Cambodia. This act violated Cambodian neutrality and provoked anti-war protests on Nationalist College campus. From 1968 to 1973, efforts were made to end the conflict through diplomacy. In January 1973, an agreement was reached. U.S. forces were withdrawn from Vietnam. The U.S. prisoners of war was released. In April 1974, South Vietnam surrendered to the North, and Vietnam was reunited. Why U.S. defeated Vietnam? Vietnam's strong and determined Vietnam's resistance. The Vietnam, especially Viet Cong and North Vietnam Army, had deep knowledge of the terrain and used wars effectively. They went to fighting just not a war, but revolution for independence and national reunification that gave them strong motivation. Difficult geography, descent jungles, mountains, and hidden tunnels made it hard for American troops to fight. The Viet Cong blended in with the civilian population, making it hard to tell friend from enemy. Limited understanding of local culture and politics. The U.S. supported a corrupt and unpopular South Vietnamese government, which lacked the support of many people. Americans didn't fully understand the nationalist motivations behind North struggle, anti-war movement at home. As the war dragged on, media coverage of violence shocked Americans. Massive protests across the U.S., especially on college campuses, pressured the government to withdraw. Costly and unsustainable. The war cost billions of dollars and tens of thousands American lives, with no clear progress or end in sight. Public and political support collapsed. North Vietnam's strategic patience. North Vietnam was willing to endure years of bombing and destruction. They believed that time was on their side, and they were right. Number two, who was Viet Cong? The Viet Cong was name given by United States and the Republic of Vietnam to communist soldiers and guerrilla fighting for Vietnamese Workers' Party and Democratic Republic of Vietnam during the Second Indochina War from 1956 to 1975. In reality, however, this name was used by United States to refer to all South Vietnamese who fought against the United States, regardless whether they were communists or not. Present of Ngô Đình Diệm, the first term of 1956 to refer Vietnamese communists. Although the origin of the name commonly believed to have come from American intelligence chef who was sent to advise to Ngô Đình Diệm when American troops landed in the south of Vietnam. They briefly referenced Viet Cong as the VC. Number 3. What country supported Vietnam during struggle against the U.S.? North Vietnam was supported by Soviet Union, China, and other communist allies. Number 4. After the fall of Saigon, to which country did Vietnamese voting people and refuse go? Who left Vietnam then, and why did they leave Vietnam? Who left Vietnam? After fall of Saigon at April 30, 1974, hundreds of thousands Vietnamese fled the country. Many of them were former soldiers, officials of South Vietnamese government, business people, intellectuals, civilians who feared political. Later in late 1970s, some Chinese or Hoa people also left due to border tensions and economic policies. Why did they leave? Fear of political retribution or being sent to re-education camps, disagreement with the new range, or inability to adapt to post-war life, desire for safer, freer, and more stable future for themselves and their family. How did they live? Many escaped by boat, become known as the boat people. Many journeys was extremely dangerous, facing perils, starvation, and storm at sea. Where did they go? The main destination country included the United States, Canada, Australia, France, Germany. At the first arrival at refugee camp in places like Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia before resettlement. Number 5. How is relationships between Vietnam and US nowadays? On the morning July 2nd, 1995, Vietnamese Prime Minister Vo Van Kiet officially announced the the normalization of diplomatic relations with the U.S. Number 4. Vietnam and China. Present China's domination of Vietnam. Number 2. Make introduction of the following people, emphasize their achievement. The first one, Trần Hưng Đạo. Trần Hưng Đạo was born in 1228 and died at 1300. Real name Trần Quốc Tuấn, also known as Grand Prince Trần Hưng Đạo, was a Vietnamese royal prince, a statesman and military commander of Đại Việt military force during the Trần Dynasty. After his death, he was considered a saint and deified by people named Đức Thánh Trần or Cực Thiên Vũ Đế. Hưng Đạo commanded the Vietnamese armies that repelled 2 out of 3 major Mongol invasions in the late 13th century. His multiple victories over the Yuan dynasty and under Kublai Khan are considered among the greatest military feats in Vietnam history. The Mongol Empire expansion. In 13th century, the Mongol Empire led by Thành Cát Tư Hãn, later Hồ Tất Liệt, became one of the most powerful military forces in the world. The Mongols sought to expand their empire to the South Asia, including Đại Việt. The Trần Dynasty's rule at this time, Đại Việt was under the rule of Trần Dynasty, which faced both external threats and internal challenges. The Trần Dynasty under King Trần Thái Tông had to defend the country from powerful foreign forces, including the Mongols, while also strengthening from its own rule. Key events shaping Trần Hưng Đạo career. First, Mongol invasion. In 1258, the Mongol captured Thăng Long, now is Hanoi, but under Trần Hưng Đạo leadership, the Vietnamese force managed to drive them out. This early victory marked the beginning of Trần Hưng Đạo military career. Appointment commander at 1260. In 1260, Trần Hưng Đạo was appointed as the commander of Đại Việt army, marking a turning point in his career. This appointment was recognition of his strategic brilliance and leadership abilities. Second and third Mongol invasion in 1285 and 1288. Trần Hưng Đạo led Đại Việt force in the second and third Mongol invasion. His successful strategies, particularly in battles like Hàm Tử and Bạch Đằng, this resulted in complete Mongol defeats and secured Vietnam independence. Quang Trung. Emperor Quang Trung, born as 1753 and died as 1792, or Nguyễn Huệ, also known as Nguyễn Quang Bình, was the second emperor of the Joseon dynasty, reigning from 1788 until 1792. He was also one of the most successful military commanders in Vietnam history. His son Nguyễn Huệ and his brother Nguyễn Nhạc and Nguyễn Lữ, together known as Joseon brothers, were leaders of Joseon rebellion. As a rebel, they conquered Vietnam, overthrowing the imperial Later Lê dynasty under two rival feudal of houses of the Nguyen in the south and the Trịnh in the north. Lý Thường Kiệt was real name Ngô Tuấn was a Vietnamese general admiral of Lý dynasty. He served as an official through the reign of Lý Thánh Tông, Lý Thái Tông, Lý Thánh Tông, and Lý Nhân Tông, was the general during the Song Lý War. In Vietnamese history, he helped invade Champa, read the Three Song dynasty. Ngô Quyền was born at 878 and died at 944, often referred to as Tiền Ngô Vương, first king of Ngô, was Warlord, who later became the founding king of Ngô dynasty of Vietnam. His reign from 939 to 944. In 938, he defeated Southern Han dynasty at the battle at the Bạch Đằng River, north modern Hải Phòng. The battle is celebrated in Vietnam national history at the end of 1,000 years of Chinese rule over Vietnam, dating back to 111 BC under Western Han dynasty. Number 3. Why did China repeatedly invade Vietnam? First one, geography proximity. The Vietnam located just south of China, making it more accessible for military campaign. Its geographic position allowed for relatively straightforward logistic and troop movements compared to more distant regions like Laos or Burma. Number 2, culture and economic integration. Vietnam has significant cultural ties to China, including Confucian, Chinese writing system, and agricultural practices. Control over Vietnam allowed Chinese dynasty to extend their cultural and political influence, integrate the range into their sphere, and benefits from its agricultural wealth. Strategic and important resource exploitation, political control and rebellion, historical prejudice, historical lesser strategic value, neighboring range. Number 4. When did Mongolia invade Vietnam and why it was defeated? Cause of the war. The ambitions of Mongol Empire to invade. With ambition to dominate as Asia, the Mongol force repeatedly invaded Latvia. Main event. The resistance was marked by 3 phases, each highlighting four of the glorious victory of our troops and civilians. First invaders. In 1258, the Mongol forces launched a surprise attack but were fiercely repelled by our troops by Chai River and Bình Lê Nguyễn. Second invasion. The Mongol Yuan force mobilized a larger army but still fell again. This is the largest and most intense invasion by Mongol force. However, with the resulting victory in the Battle of Bạch Đằng in 1288, our forces crushed the invader ambitions. Number 5. What was the latest official war between Vietnam and China? Reason. Vietnam invasion of Cambodia. China wanted to teach Vietnamese a lesson. After Vietnamese alliance with Soviet Union, ethnic tension and border issues. What happened? On February 17, 1979, China launched a large-scale military attack into northern Vietnam, sending around 200 troops. Battle broke in several Vietnamese provinces along the border, including Lạng Sơn, Cao Bằng, and Lào Cai. The Vietnamese army, through experience from Vietnam War, was stretched thin because it was still engaged in Cambodia. China faced heavy resistance from both Vietnamese military and local militia. After 3 weeks of fighting, China announced that it had punished Vietnam and withdrew its troops on March 16, 1979. Both sides suffered heavy. Number 6. How is the relationships between Vietnam and China nowadays? Formalized relation on November 9, 1991. Since 1991, leaders and senior officials of both countries have exchanged visits. The relationships between Vietnam and China is a bit complicated. On one hand, we are close neighbor and trading partner. On the other hand, we still have some disagreement, especially about South China Sea. Number 5. Joseph Cathedral and religion in Vietnam. Question number 1. Cathedral history. Joseph Cathedral in Hanoi, which was built during the French colonial period, is a typical example of colonial architectural works in the capital of Vietnam. Underground, before it was built, there used to be Buddhist pagoda named Bac Thiên. This pagoda was biggest and most sacred during later dynasty. At the end of the 18th century, some parts of pagoda was destroyed to set up the market. Then cathedral was constructed at the site. Initially of wood, it was reconstructed with baked clay in 1884. On Christmas in 1888, its construction was finished. Architecture. Exterior, built with stone slab in brick with concrete facing. The face consists of 2 towers, square in shape, rising to a height of 103 feet, 31 meter, with each tower filled with 5 bells. The cathedral was built at Gothic revival. Interior, windows are fitted with tall stained glass and have pointed arches. The cathedral stained glass windows and were produced in France before being transported to Vietnam. The cell is revalued like those into medieval Europe. Significant. Joseph Cathedral has been main meeting place of Archdiocese of Hanoi, which often hosts the activity of local parishes. The site has been managed to both local and visitors because not only its religious importance, but also its architecture and its historical feature. Present the 5 most prominent religions in Vietnam. The first one, Buddhism. Buddhism introduced from India through China around the 2nd century, which flourished under the Liancheng dynasty, and has deeply influenced the Vietnamese culture and tradition. They have 12 to 14 million number and followers. The main content is a belief in karma, rebirth, compassion's common. Practice include visiting pagoda, chanting, meditation, vegetarianism, and praying for the peace and fortune. Many Vietnamese people mix Buddhism with ancestor worship. Major Buddhist holidays like Vesak, Buddha's birthday, are widely observed. Second, Roman Catholicism arrived in the 16th century with Portuguese, Spanish, and later French missionary. It grew significantly during French colonial from 19th to 20th century. Have 6 to 7 million followers. Believe in one of God and Jesus Christ. Core practice include attending mass, prayer, reading Bible, confession, and celebrating Christian holiday. Gaudism. Founded in 1926 in Tây Ninh Province, a uniquely Vietnam religion that combines elements of Buddhism and Christianity, Taoism, Confucianism, and Islam, has 2 or 3 million. Believe in single and all-loving supreme being. Follow preach at least twice a day. Follow a vegetarian diet and gather at colorful temple for ceremony. Number 4, Protestantism. Introduced in early 30th century by American. And European have 1 million. Believe in salvation through faith and Jesus Christ. Practices include Bible reading, prayer, worship, service, and community involvement. Huaism, a reformist Buddhist movement founded by Huỳnh Phú Sổ in Mekong Delta, focuses on simplicity and social service. Has 2 million followers. Emphasis doing good, honoring ancestors, and avoiding complex rituals. No monks or large temples. Followers often gather in small local shrines. It is difficult for Catholics to find job in Vietnam. Legacy, no. But however, in reality, it can be a bit harder in certain sensitive jobs. Number 4, Đạo Mẫu. Vietnamese Mother Goddess worship, commonly known as Đạo Mẫu, was established at Vietnam at 16th century. Đạo Mẫu appear to be quite common and has deep historical and social origin. Đạo Mẫu is an indigenous belief that takes the worship and the mother as the god with the power, reproduction, guardianship, and protection for people. Đạo Mẫu was divided in 3 types: worship the goddess, worship the Holy Mother, worship the Mother 3-4 palaces. Although they are all worship feminine gods, but they are not completely inessential. Exercise. Right worship. The gods of mother worship reflect the qualities of mother, but are defined have a mythical Đạo mẫu hầu đồng ritual has distilled to create spiritual space containing majesty, luxury, and full of joy and beauty of spiritual state from a living museum of Vietnamese culture. The most important part of a ritual is the Zadong, also known as the sacred dance. In ceremonies, Zadong will be performed with song called Chầu Văn. Related information: most of Vietnamese temples in countryside have shrine to worship the mother, creating a cozy and bustling atmosphere of the temple. In contrast, the influence of Buddhism also very strong on the temple and the shrine of Mother Goddess, especially the image of Guardian Buddha.